Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Autopsy with Maddie P. I'm your host, Maddie P. Girl. What's cracking, queen? Did you miss me? I missed you. Last week, mommy took 2 doxycycline. So that was quite the episode. If you didn't see it, go back and watch. I opened with talking about some tequila rampages. Rampages? What's the word? Just some things, okay, that immediately opening a podcast one might not say. But that's okay. We're not blaming her for her doxycycline rampage, honestly. Just tearing through the town 2 doxycycline deep. I have not taken my doxycycline today. I actually need to probably get on that. Anyways, girls, good to see you again. How was your week? Thank you. Mine was good too. Thank you. Actually, I did have an amazing week. I'm really back in the groove of things. You know, I'm accepting life. Sorry, we're talking about acceptance today, but I'm accepting life in a lot of ways that I was turning my head to and just completely ignoring. But it's part of life to just ignore what's happening around you. And I get in these phases. I don't know if y'all do this, where I just blatantly ignore what is happening around me. And I just keep chugging forward as if everything's the same. We're good, right? And I don't know what delusional part of me does that. But we're calling her out. Yeah, she's going to a close. She's going straight to Yale. Okay. I have had I feel like recently during my warm-ups, I've been telling you guys a few vocal stems that I've been having. This week, one is, I feel. Another is closets. Don't make me finish it. Closets. That's from Modern Family. And that bastard Rolodex stealing Earl Chambers. That's been a big one. Is Earl Chambers. Fuck Earl Chambers. Rolodex AS how. I feel. I'm not really good at Sophia though, and hers are the best. I love Sophia Vergara. So hot. Love her so much. She's more than those boobs though. Okay. Let's get into some warm-ups now. We'll start by saying I was scrolling through TikTok. I don't know if some of you have seen this, but I love Zootopia. Okay, I also found out Zootopia is a huge part of Disney China and like Korea. I am not a Disney adult. I haven't been to Disney since I was like 10, honestly. But I love Disney talk. I have to be completely honest here. I think I've come clean and told you about that. So I'm sorry. Here I am again. I love Disney talk. Adult Disneyers definitely piss me the fuck off, but when they have money, watching their bougie hauls and like, it's nice. But I prefer watching people take their kids, because what the fuck you doing there, honestly? Like, and I'm saving mine because the realization that I go when I have kids, you know, if anyone ever finds me and implants me with a child. Eggs. Anyways, just got off topic. But I love that Zootopia is a big deal over there because I love Zootopia. I always was big on watching Disney movies, mostly just animated films. Okay, if you don't know, secretly I am an anime girl. Yeah, I know. Death Note's my shit and I'm about to rewatch it. I was to the point that I was thinking about being Goku. Or not Goku. Whatever. I was thinking about being one of my favorite anime characters for Halloween, but it felt like coming out of the closet, and also they're a lot of work because being a Shinigami, you're gonna have to make an outfit from hand, and then to make it hot, you know, it's a little issue there. And still struggling with the Halloween costume sector. Doesn't matter how many tangents I'm glad I'm getting it out now before we start talking, because Jesus Christ. And I love Zootopia. I was scrolling I say it for the 5th time. I was scrolling on the talk, and is it old that I say the talk? Somebody posted a video where they were like on Netflix or some shit, and it said Zootropolis. I seized out. I can't accept that bullshit. I'm sorry. I can't accept that. There are some Mandela effects. It's just like, the whole concept behind Mandela effects just freaks me out, because it's just like, why did they go and change it? There's no way. And some things it's like, okay, y'all just dumb and y'all don't remember that shit. Some things is like, yeah, somebody changed that. There's no way. And I could not. except before our eyes, a Mandela effect's happening. So I had to go figure this out. I debunked it, y'all. I debunked it. Zootropolis is what they call Zootopia in certain foreign countries, mostly European countries, I think. I felt immensely better when I saw that. I was like, oh, perfect. Thank God. Because what the hell? King Kylie is back. Girl, let me tell you, Kylie was that bitch when I was in high school. Loved her. I even had a lip kit, girl. I don't even remember which one. It was like the pink one. I don't remember the name. But Kylie was that bitch, y'all. During that era, it was her. And like, ironically enough for me, Alexis Rin. Like, we had several going on. And she's bringing it back. Now, Kylie released a song. I'm talking about the Kardashians 2 weeks in a row. Suck it. Sorry. Love them. As you know, I literally love the Kardashians. Which, like, I'm not embarrassed to admit. Y'all be watching the craziest ass shit. So I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear it. Pardon me that I love the Kardashians. Sorry. Sue me. The song, and I don't accept Kylie slander. I simply don't. Love her dearly. I don't accept it. Kindle slander, that's another thing. The song, you know, I'm not going to talk about it. My voice going up 3 octaves. I'm just not going to talk about that. No slander accepted. Did someone else write it in their teens? Maybe. But I'm just happy for her, you know? I don't know why she chose now to go ahead with this King Kylie stuff, but I am so glad that she's proceeding ahead. She's having a pop-up in LA or something. And I watched a video of it today and I'm like, oh, amazing. So many actors and singers. She's not an actor or a singer. So many celebrities, okay, refuse to go back to their roots. And I understand why, right? There's a lot of reasons as to why. But it's like her and the Jonas Brothers. They going right back. They're not wasting any time. Actually, look what I have right here. Packaging on 10. It still looks like it's from 2016. Use this shit all the time. Amazing work. Amazing work, Kylie. And then also, I don't know if y'all are on this side of TikTok, so I won't divulge too much, but Wendy Oritz, is that her name? Was with Kylie. Now, Tana Mojo and her assistant Paige dressed up as Alabama and Bad Baby. Which, you know, some people just aren't naturally funny. So they have to gravitate towards outfits like that. Costumes like that. And I love them. I do. I love Tana. But, you know, they could have gone funnier, I fear. Sorry about that one. And Kylie was hanging out with Wendy in Alabama. And I thought it was sweet. I feel like Kylie's sweet for that. I thought that was sweet. And she like posted her on her story. And Wendy was like nervous about meeting her. It was kind of cringe, honestly. Like I am one of those people that like I'll watch I watch Alabama. I watch like people I don't care to admit right now, honestly. Like it just pops up on my page and it makes me so interested and intrigued. And like I don't know. I might have to cut that out. Wasting airtime right now. Now, we're going to get into some more facts. Okay? Facts. Animals used to be put on trial in the Tudor times. Fucking nuts. I don't understand how society has developed so much. And of course, here we are in this big gap of time where everything's fucked up again. But we're sliding back downhill. But like, I don't understand how people used to be so stupid. Sorry. Dumb. What the fuck do you mean animals used to be on trial? What happens when they lost? They're already locked up. How are you going to lock them up more? Hey, we're going to cut into your intestines and eat you now because you failed trial. Poor animals. I want to know what they were on trial for. Like, there was already shit in the streets, lady. Hey, it already smells like ass out here. The animals are probably cleaner than us. At least they self-bathe. We think we're sinning sometimes if we bathe. Nasty. And I've talked about this before too. You guys know I had this fascination around the smell of that time. Is fascination the right word? I fear that it is the right word. And finally I got my answer. It is so bad you would pass out. Like now if you smelled that smell. I never wanted to smell the smell. I just wanted to know how bad. Like I needed it articulated really well to me. And passed out was what I needed to hear. You're not making it out. Hey, animals on trial and you're passing out if you smell that shit. I'm so lucky to be born now. I don't care what anyone says. This is my generation. I'm sorry about it. Couldn't live without that phone, babes. Don't know where I am half the time. And I wouldn't have it any other way. So, next and final warm up. Because I feel like I'm revealing some stuff about myself today that like needs to be kept private. Let me go ahead and turn this ringer off. I'm an aunt now, you know? Like I feel. Final point. Did you guys know that the moon is actually lemon shaped? Okay, so like people think it's for real lemon shaped, right? On this situation, or like for real egg shaped. It's not that bad, but it is not a perfect circle. This might be something you already know. I felt I should have known that. I was like, did I learn that already? Anyways, not circular. So where are we getting those pictures then? This unloads a lot of questions to me. Now, is the pictures that we're getting from the satellite, is it because when you get closer to the moon, it's only kind of like enough, rounded enough that you have to be up on it, and it's like a slight round, not roundness, just like obscure oval. Oval. Yeah, is that the situation? And it's like it's close enough to the satellite too that it's like, okay, or not close enough, far enough away from the satellite that it's also picking up a circle. Now that I'm talking about it, I'm dumb for questioning the moon because on Earth it's circular too, because we just can't see it that close. But in which case, moon landing. And I don't know if I have talked about this before or not. Moon landing is something. I am a flat earther. No, I'm not. Could you imagine? I'm a flat earther, actually. No, I'm not. Everyone, the earth is round. Thank you. But yeah, anyways, there are certain conspiracies and things people say. It's just like, it's not fucking real. Y'all are stupid, actually. That's not true. But the moon landing, I don't know if that happened. Do I think we've been to the moon since? Yes. Do I think that was filmed in Hollywood somewhere? Yes. I don't think that's real, if I'm being completely honest with you. And anyways, the whole, I'm glad I worked it out here when I talked about it and figured out, you know, that the pictures are probably real, right? We're getting real pictures. But could you imagine if NASA and all the other international space stations are like fucking with us that hard? There's no way, because y'all have to think about it. In every line of work, everywhere across the world, there are good people. There are people in the line of work of something to do with space that are not lying to the general public like that. There are some that are cool with that and are, or whatever. Same as cancer researchers. Sorry. But there are people who, for the love of science, would let us know what's going on if it was that much of a scam. But I have my questions. I digress. Quote of the week. I'm shedding. And I don't know if it's a doxycycline or what. I'm shedding. The curious paradox is when I accept myself just as I am, then I change. Carl Rogers. Good work, Carl. That was a good quote. Okay, so what's happening in the autopsy world? Today, kings and queens, we are talking about acceptance. Acceptance comes on many scales in many forms, much like many things we talk about here. Acceptance today, I am talking about in a few of those forms, but I will start by saying that acceptance is one of the best freedoms that you can give yourself. We will get into it, but across all boards. I'm not just talking about people with alcoholism and addiction and coming to acceptance with that, but with yourself and with the state of the fucking world and the state of your life and everything happening around you. Okay? We have to have a bit of realism in alcoholism and addiction. That is something that in life, that is something that we did not possess naturally. I talked a little bit last week about coming to terms with my insanity. Quite the episode, mind you. Quite an intimate episode. If you haven't seen it, you should go watch it. Pretty intimate. And I gave myself this freedom of coming to terms with my insanity and with my mental illness and on a lot of fronts. And it was, extremely freeing. And it is what I think grants me a lot of my life now and a lot of the way I view life and a lot in my pursuit of happiness, my pursuit of peace, which is what this podcast honestly is about. It is alcoholism and addiction based, but it's about our pursuit to peace and happiness, first and foremost. So acceptance is a big deal. And I wanted to make that point so that you don't go running off if you're not an alcoholic or addict, because there are many reasons and things that you need to accept probably in your life right now. Okay? What brought me to this topic too, I was reflecting this week on, I've been spending a lot of extra time in the rooms and with people in recovery and in my recovery. I had hit that little lull there, and we talked about the ebbs and flow of recovery. And since then, everything's about recovery again, which it always was. I never questioned my sobriety. I never questioned drinking. And that's honest. I'm not saying that to say that, because I want it to be clear. I will come to you and speak to you whenever I have those thoughts, whether I act on them or not. Because it's important that we're open about that shit. And I feel like I always hear people in recovery being like, oh, I don't think about it, or no, I haven't thought about it, and blah, 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 or no. And it feels like a lie, and you can tell that they're lying to you. And I just want them, not in a way to blame them, but in a way for people to know that it's safe to talk about. And that's why we have each other. That's the whole point. And that honesty is so important for sobriety. And that's why I come on here and I talk about that shit. And I talk about it in private with people. I get intimate about it. I get vulnerable about it. Because it's not as easy as just fucking quitting and moving on. And it keeps us sick. Dishonesty is what keeps me sick. And dishonesty in what I'm feeling for the most part. And that's where I suffer my dishonesty now. What I'm feeling and my willingness to open up to others and accept where I am in life. Anyways, how many times am I going to digress? Okay. I can only use that word so many times. So I was reflecting on my acceptance, because I felt, and this is another kind of tip, whenever you're hitting a new space in sobriety and you're coming to a new level, I recognize this time with my ebb and flow that there needs to be a new level of acceptance and reacceptance that takes place. Because we have to, as addicts, as alcoholics, we have to be reminded of that all the time. That we accept us as we are. We accept that we are alcoholics, that we are addicts. We accept us as mentally ill, or wherever you are in your personal life, even if you're not suffering. And it's just of utmost importance. So I wanted to give that tip, to reaccept anytime you're feeling down and you need renewal. It's a good basis to start, because it helps us see ourselves differently too. It helps us see that sick girl that I also talked about last week that just needs love and care. And sometimes going back to square one is what that takes to heal and to move on. So I was reflecting on my acceptance. Okay. And I'm going to start first with a time that I feel most people would have been like, hey, I have a fucking problem. And this should have been my first acceptance. And when I think back to this day, it's just a mark when this day comes in my brain, when people ask me about what made me stop, what made me realize I had a problem, when did I hand over my life to sobriety, and all those things. This day pops in my mind. I don't talk about this day though, because I didn't recognize it. I did subconsciously and refused to. Anyways, I made a point before, and I want to make this abundantly clear to you again, that people like myself, and if you're watching this, if you're an alcoholic or you're an addict, we do not care that we're sick. We don't care. I did not care. That is the last thing on my radar. And we are so, at this point, so sick, so twisted that we can find a way out of the illness situation. Unless there's a doctor in front of you telling you that you have cirrhosis, there are so many ways to outthink and manipulate yourself and lie to yourself into saying that your illnesses or your physical effects are of something else. Okay? 2. But we don't fucking care. That is never what's going to stop somebody. And I don't think people understand that it's a marker of an insane person too. And that is a different form of acceptance that we just kind of talked about a little bit. But I look back to that and that was like, it's insane that our disease functions in that way to where us being sick just doesn't even fucking matter. And it's the truth. And I think it's like, not only do we not care that we harm ourselves, in those moments, we don't recognize or don't care that the way we harm ourselves harms other people too. And that is a tricky thing when I look back at, family members, my parents, people that I knew I was harming by harming myself, because there comes a layer of guilt with that, because internally and subconsciously that like you don't want it to be that way. And it sucks because it's like, why can't you just fucking stop for me? And you feel like just absolute shit. And there's a way out of that. And there is a way to then go on in life and recognize that other people are the center of your life in sobriety, and that what matters in your life is the way that you leave other people feeling, and the way that you're there for people, and the way that you have a helping hand and are willing to be someone new. And they always graciously give you that second chance. And that is a beautiful, beautiful piece of sobriety. And I didn't come on here to kind of explain, I kind of fell into that, but I didn't mean to explain the dichotomy between an addict and their person or their family members or whatever, but it's tricky. And from my perspective, it was always hard in that realm of hurting others, hurting me, hurting others. So yeah. And as some of you, you might be new here, so I'll just re-explain. In my alcoholism, I was an addict first. I am an addict. I talk about alcoholism because it's a huge part of my life. And I feel addiction to be much more, it's just a lot different. Okay. And alcoholism is something that the masses, I think, are dealing with as well. And I relate to a lot more people in my alcoholism. My addiction is very in the rooms, private recovery kind of based. And I, towards the end of my active addiction, had a lot of physical effects from alcohol. I'll say it. I did have yellowing in my eyes that some still remains in this eye. And I was having extreme kidney issues. And I was physically ill and dependent on alcohol. And the main thing too was I had pins and needles and like nerve issues, and like walking was strange, the back of my legs, a whole situation there, which is very entirely scary when I look back. And this story kind of has to do with that. So I went to the pool one day. This is ingrained in my memory, y'all. I went to the pool one day alone, as I did in the summer, especially when I was drinking. That's all I would do. I would just go to the pool and get fucked up until I go to work. And I got to the pool and was laying down like in the chair, and I realized I didn't drink before I left. The reason I realized this was because the pain and like pins and needles, the effects that were going through my body physically were, I mean, I don't know if it was withdrawal looking back. Like, I had obviously drank myself to sleep the night before, as I did every single night. Every single night I drank myself to sleep for several years. And I don't know what exactly the effect was medically, but I realized it was because I didn't drink in that moment. And I had been feeling those things and feeling those effects. But in my psychotic, addicted mind, I thought that I was starting to get maybe like a different underlying illness, or maybe I was Googling that day effects of a hangover. And Google's basically like, yeah, in alcoholism, kind of. Like, it's like, no, that's not really the effect of a hangover, but that's not good. And I was like, okay, this must be something else. And I remember that day so well because I knew deep down that that was terrifying. I was genuinely scared because as soon as I got back to my house, I left early, came back to my house, and I drank, and I felt better. And I knew in that moment, I think that was the moment that I knew that I was dependent physically on alcohol, or I was growing a greater dependence on alcohol outside of emotions and outside of my inability to have willpower. It was so far past that. And it was just a really scary moment. And I remember going to work that night, and the days after that got really hazy. This was not long after that I did get sober. This was probably in like June maybe or July, and I got sober August 13th. And the weeks following that were extremely hazy. It caused me to drink more. Because my emotions and what was happening to me, and I was so lost. I was so confused, and I was scared. Honestly, I was really scared. And it caused me to drink. It made everything worse. And that is something that I admit to you so that you can see the effects of alcoholism and the dangers and how twisted and fucked up your mind can get in any form of addiction or alcoholism. But again, my physical symptoms did not lead me to get sober whatsoever. And they also did not lead me to acceptance. And getting sober and acceptance are two extremely different things. When I was first getting in the rooms and getting sober, it took me a very long time to accept that this is where I belong. There were so many questions and so many moments where I felt like I was robbing myself of life, which is sad that I thought, am I just being dramatic about this? Like, am I robbing myself of the potential of this young life? Because to me, all life was this artificial fun that I had created for myself. And all life was drinking. And so how could I rob myself of this? It's kind of that impending feeling of, did I make the wrong call? It's kind of how that feels. And I also wanted to be transparent about that and bring that up today because it did play a big role in my sobriety, but I did not give up was the most important thing. I had those thoughts. I had the confusion. I was worried that I made the wrong call, but I didn't give up and I kept pushing. And now I know for a fact that I'm an alcoholic and I did not make the wrong call. But anyways, it made me realize those questions, that the meaning, and it's important to investigate those questions instead of ignore them and just keep going to meetings and keep doing shit. That's why the vulnerability and hearing what your brain is saying to you is so important, and working on that, because it led me to answers that still keep me sober today, and I hope keep me sober for the rest of my life, honestly. And it seems so dramatic to people when I say that, but like, I have a problem. I have an issue, and my life cannot. I have no shot at being happy, joyous, and free if I continue to drink. I just don't have it. And that sucks, sure. But anyways, we'll get into that. But I realized the meanings, the great meaning and the joy of life is so much harder to find. And to walk away with memories is expensive. It's a task. It definitely takes work. And that is especially for somebody like me who suffers from mental illness. And a lot of alcoholics, a lot of addicts do. But this goes for anyone who suffers with mental illness, that naturally we are not programmed to just live this joyous life where things are free and we get to take these memories with us, and all these girls that laugh around us and have the best time and remember that day and are just so free. We don't live like that. And there's a level of acceptance in that too, that I kind of have talked about over the whole course of this podcast. But that was when I recognized that it was going to take work for me to understand memory and for me to understand joy in that way. And I was hindering myself by trying to do it with alcohol in the center of it. And I wasn't going to get the opportunity to make it in terms of my happiness and my peace, and finally being free from this mental disorder and from just experiencing. Because the nights on the dance floor and all of these things that I thought brought me peace and brought me experience and memory, they were just filler. And tricking myself into thinking that memories and joy was small and simple. And joy is neither of those things. It is not small, and it is also not simple. And I think we make it hard on ourselves a lot, especially as mentally ill people, that we think, and we've talked about this, so I won't beat a dead horse, but we think that it's supposed to be so simple and it's our fault that we aren't feeling these things. And it makes us feel like we're not fun, and that's something that we hide. That's not something that we just go ahead and accept and come to terms with, that we're not fun. It's hard for us. We're boring. We might go mute in public settings. We can't go out and have fun the way these people are and enjoy things that we're supposed to enjoy. And that's a really isolating feeling. And that kept me in the closet with my drinking for a very long time. And I had tricked myself into thinking that I was fun and I was the life of the party and I was all this stuff. But it was a facade, and it was never real at any point in time. And joy costs. And I want that to be a point here today, that real joy in life is difficult to find sometimes. And I want to be open and honest and vulnerable that my life, what I look like now, the journey that I started the day that I started my sobriety, the day I picked up my white chip, is an ongoing journey for forever towards joy and peace and serenity. It's not that fucking simple. And it has cost me a lot of sacrifice, a lot of energy, a lot of time, relationship. It's cost me a lot, and I would pay it over and over again because that's what I want my life to look like. I don't get that opportunity with drinking, period. And that's something that you have to accept deep within you. If you feel that way and you understand what the fuck I'm saying right now, and you understand the way that you isolate and you can hear it in yourself, like see what I'm saying to you in yourself, that is a battle that I want to encourage you to take on. If you don't walk away if you don't walk away with anything else and you don't hear anything else and you don't want to fight or battle for anything else, you should battle for that. And what we do here is at any cost, at any length, we fight for that, which any length is being sober for me personally. Sometimes when I felt down, and not down in life, but down about sobriety and bogged down with sobriety questions, this is more so towards the beginning of sobriety, it actually gave me proof that I was an alcoholic and that I did have a problem, because I was wrestling with the ideal of happiness and it didn't come naturally to me. And every time I had those questions, that was at the pit of it. And it ended up helping me. And I don't know, maybe it was flipping those questions on its head or diving deep enough into them to understand what I'm fighting for. And that's a fucking smile. And other people don't deal with shit like that. And gaining a smile outside of alcohol, which is a fight, which other people don't fucking deal with. And it did help me. I could recognize that my natural state in life was fighting for peace. My natural state was fighting for happiness. My natural state was not easy breezy and smiley like I felt a lot of other people's were. And all these thoughts and all this time period I went through was a big effort in my acceptance. And kind of a huge period of time of my acceptance kind of shoved into a few sentences and words that I'm trying to articulate to you now. But partying for me was always numbing out. Always. Drinking, it was always numbing, and it was always self-medication. There was never an enhancement of my life. And that is an important way to view it. If you struggle with similar questions like I have, am I making the right call? Are you numbing out over alcohol? Is it enhancing? And enhancing isn't the right word in terms of when you are out in social settings. People drink to elicit a small level of fun. Enhancement in that way. If it always comes with more and you were leaning on it in this emotional way, that's how you know you're making the right call. And it was always just to numb out to me. And I could not, once I saw that for what it was, I could not unsee it. It took me so long to recognize that I was drinking at this rate different than everyone else because I was numbing and because I was mentally ill and really sick, and emotionally and physically and spiritually. All the things, I was sick. And once I saw it as such, that is not something that you can just ignore and walk away from. I mean, I guess some people can, but for me personally, once I saw it in that way and in that light, that was a level of acceptance that I could have, where it just, things were never going to be the same for me. And if I went back and touched that shit and went back to my ways, it was never going to be the same again either. I could not self-medicate the same ever again. And I ruined that for myself, thank God, in a good way. Yeah, luckily, though, I stayed sober long enough to recognize a lot of the trickery in my mind, and that the facade that kind of happens when my life starts to feel empty, sober. When the questions come back in, maybe I could drink, maybe it's not that bad. And I, thank God, have been able to recognize that trickery, and I'm growing into a much more purposeful state in my life outside of drinking. And I simply require more of a fight. Just like any alcoholic, any addict, you require more of a fight for your life and to get away from your past and to get away from that emotionally abusive and tormenting relationship that you dealt with alcohol or drugs or whatever. Anyways, though, that got kind of deep. I don't know, girl. I want to talk about now what truly my first bout of acceptance of simply alcoholism was for me, when I learned in my bones very deep down that I knew for a fact I was an alcoholic, and I could come to terms with that step one and really move forward with my life. And it had, again, nothing to do with physical effects, nothing to do with something I did, nothing to do with alcoholism. I was sitting in the rooms, as one does, fighting for my fucking life, just trying to stay sober day after day. And obviously, as you know, it was very difficult in the beginning. And people were sharing things that I would never dare to say out loud. These were things that I never thought another person could ever think outside of myself, which is so funny to look back on now, to have such a beautiful life where I'm united with all these people and people that share my same brain. And it's amazing. And that was proof to me. I knew that I was home when people spoke like that. And I just had a moment one day where this is what makes me an alcoholic. Not all I've done, not the sickness I have, but that I am united now with these people who understand me, and I am meant to be here. I am home for real. And it makes me very emotional because I'm extremely blessed in my life to be an alcoholic. Extremely. Because I would never be understood like this. And I would never have the opportunity to grow and to blossom like this. And I'm blessed to be an alcoholic. And I'm blessed to be in recovery. And I'm extremely grateful for my life now. Extremely. And it's very important to me to stay sober. And that is what gave me my acceptance, because I could see that I was part of these people and they were proof to me. And I didn't recognize that through pain or suffering. I recognized that through love. That's where I had acceptance, was through love and through unity, not through my pain and suffering. And that's why acceptance comes in healing in so many different forms. And that kept me in the rooms and kept me in the fight. Even if I have that question, any questions now, which luckily my life looks a lot different and I'm blessed. Like I've said so many times on here recently, but even if now I have questions, that is what kept me in the rooms. That is what kept me sober and what kept me going. You can't turn away. When somebody understands you at a different level than you have ever been understood in your entire life. I had never been seen like that, ever. I couldn't even dream of being seen like that. I didn't know recovery was going to look like that for me. And that is what kept me in the game. And then there's also the proof, and that was just the love aspect. There's also the proof of these people sitting around you having your fucking brain. I can't fucking ignore that. That right there is all I need to fucking know, because I have the same thoughts as you and I see life the same as you, and we're just the same. And there's no denying that. And so if you were to ask me what kept me in the rooms, what got me sober and what allowed me to accept full term that I am an alcoholic, that is the answer. And that was far past active addiction and active use. And it was also where I saw that I am so much more than a disease, and that there is so much beauty and beauty in my fight, in my life now. And the new purpose that would come from sobriety, and staying sober and learning their ways and trying my hardest to be kind, patient, and humble, and all the virtues that these people carry, was a purpose that I was so grateful on my hands and knees to have. I remember at the beginning of sobriety, and now purpose, we've talked about it so many times and there's been so many episodes about it, and it looks so different for me. But I was so blessed to be united with that purpose, that all I need to be in recovery, and this needs to be my life. And I have this new purpose where I wake up and I go through my step work. I pray, I meditate, I do whatever I'm supposed to do emotionally. And then most importantly, I have this purpose to help the other person. Both alcoholics alike and regular people, everyone. My purpose is to be of fucking service. And that is such a good way to look at sobriety, especially as a lot of alcoholics and addicts were purpose-driven people, and we suffered at the hands of that. We got drunk on that. That shit hurt us so deeply, to the point that we can't function. And our only job is to be of service. We get to hand our life over. I'm not talking in some spiritual way, in some religious way. We get to hand our life to people, to society, to whatever the fuck you need to do. And that's a great gift when you work the program right, and you can take that in your chest and understand that. It is a beautiful gift, and it is an opportunity to be somebody new and to never look at life the same anymore. And now, so that was kind of acceptance on the front of actual acceptance over my alcoholism. And, you know, I've done the situation where I replay the clips, where I think back to times where it's just evident, where other people don't act that way. They don't do shit like that. There's evidence. They're not physically ill and dependent on alcohol and tricking themselves into thinking it's fucking flu or whatever, or a bad hangover. Like, there are those reasons too, but that's kind of my acceptance with alcoholism. And then there's levels to acceptance, I think, in recovery and into being granted this beautiful life. And the next level, I think, was accepting life, accepting the hand I'm dealt, and life on life's terms. Because there is this whole thing too where, and I'm blessed for my thoughts on this, I think, and for my willingness in this way to view my hand as an opportunity. But it sucks to feel like you're dealt a shit hand. And why am I a fucking alcoholic? This is fucking nuts. Because, you know, there's a lot of alcoholics in the world, but when you're walking around day-to-day life, like, you're likely one of maybe 2 or 3 in the grocery store that day that are alcoholics. It's not like a ton of people have it. Have it? I don't know. But there is an acceptance around the fact that life is not fucking fair. It was never meant to be fucking fair. And we're dealt a shit hand. And so be it, you know? And I think that's really important to see it, not to kind of be hard on you, but to see in early sobriety that that's the way it fucking is, and you have to fight. Simple. And it sucks. But when you are starting to flip things on their head like that very quickly and turning things into opportunity, it's a beautiful thing. And that comes with looking and fighting for the beauty and the purpose in the rooms and in your recovery and in your sobriety or wherever you are, whether you go to the rooms or don't or whatever, is the beauty, and that is what provides that. When you see it as a beautiful gift, when you are granted a life where you are not stuck to a fucking bottle anymore, where you are not sick in bed daily, some of you can't help but to be grateful. Some of you can't help but to be willing to fight for that and not give a fuck that it's unfair or fair or what the fuck any of it looks like. And it is cheesy. I think some of the things I'm saying today are a little more obvious, but I just wanted to talk about it. We are granted the opportunity to grow beyond our wildest dreams. And we are granted this opportunity to be so emotionally sound because we have to stay sober, that other people aren't granted. And the way that we get to grow, the person that I'm going to be when I'm 30, the person I'm going to be when I'm 50, when I'm 60, so long as I stay sober and I continue to work my program and do what I'm supposed to do, that is fucking amazing. And watching people grow in these ways where they are just not emotionally the person they used to be, the transformation of life in that way is fucking awesome. And I know that's kind of cheesy and you probably heard that before. But it is, like I said before, I'm thankful I'm an alcoholic, which how dare somebody say something like that? But I am, for sure. Things aren't fair in life, right? And there is a level of acceptance that comes with that where you accept that as your battle. You're not fighting against the fact that life sucks, that you didn't get dealt the hand you wanted. You don't get to be like everybody else. You're fighting against that. But that battle, accepting that in your chest as yours, and that's your fight now, that is a level of acceptance too that I feel is very important and was very pivotal in my personal sobriety. That I am willing to fight for this though, and this now belongs to me. Fuck what's fair. And that was definitely a big transformation also in my inner peace. And in that way, you're done with the pity party too. Of shit not being fair, why me, all this shit. It doesn't fucking matter. We're here to fight. And that's my battle. And I knew that I was going to ignore that battle for the rest of my fucking life. And I was going to be 50 ignoring that same battle and having the pity party of why me instead of accepting this is my fight. And this is what I have to do to live my best life. And that's all I want. And I was lucky to come in at the age that I did because I knew all I want is this beautiful life and like to move on from this shit. And I didn't know how or what that was going to look like, but I fucking wanted it. And I wanted it bad. Really, really bad to not be clung to alcohol like that anymore. It sucked. And I remember like thinking there was no way ever that I was not going to crave alcohol. Physically, like crave it. I was like, these people are nuts, bruh. Like there's no way that I'm not going to physically crave being on something. And now I don't feel that way, but I digress. Again, this is off topic, but I thought I would mention this, that I think because of my generation, I'm Gen Z, born in 2000, thanks girl, that I was taking soft advice to be an alcoholic because sober curiosity was coming about. So many people were recognizing alcohol for what it is and remaining sober or getting sober or whatever. And I thought, you guys are fucking pussies. And am I following this pussy ass advice or am I actually having a problem? Obviously it's clear I genuinely have a problem, but I don't know. I think it kept me from getting sober for a little bit. It also kept me in those questions, and not lunging towards acceptance of who I am and my life. Because I want an answer out too. I think subconsciously I was looking for a reason this can't be fucking true. I want liquor. Like I need to go back. Like this can't be real. And I think part of that it was there, but I don't know if people part with that. Maybe you have a problem and maybe you're not going off of pussy advice where I'm like, God, these woke motherfuckers just want to be sober. It's bad for you, right? Like, fuck that. That was not something I followed during active addiction. Like, I'm not quitting, babes. Mom ain't raised no quitter. Like, I'm not. Now I do really healthy shit and my life is so different. It's funny to look at sometimes, but I do healthy shit. I choose healthy shit emotionally, physically, all of the above. But, at that time, I am definitely not doing healthy stuff. And I'm not going to follow somebody to stop drinking over the fact that they're woke. I don't know. Does this make sense to you guys? I don't know. But it definitely clouded my judgment, I think, is what I'm trying to tell you and be open about today, I guess. If you're searching for if you have a problem, what your future might look like and being lost in this world of recovery that exists across our ethers. All over the fucking internet. And it definitely clouded my judgment, but it brought me sober curiosity and all that being everywhere and people getting sober, recognizing it, brought me to sobriety much sooner. Because I could see people around me doing it. Like on the internet, really. I didn't have too many people in my personal life that did it. Actually, I didn't have anyone in my personal life that did it. It allowed me definitely to get sober sooner at the end of the day. And I can't imagine we're exposed, and we're granted these tools, which is a beautiful thing. We are granted tools all over the place. If you are suffering and you're somebody that's not having fun anymore and the shit's not fun and the party's over, there are so many resources. And I say that not to, like, that's obvious, but it's something where you can go to anyone and say, I think I'm struggling with a problem. Place of work. That did not used to be the case. Place of work, family, friends. There are so many places you can go, I have a fucking problem, and you're going to get help. And that is a beauty in our generation that we are able to have. And I hope that continues, of the righting the wrongs of society and of what addiction and so many other things in life look like. But I can't imagine my life even if I drank one more year, bitch. I don't know where I would be. Like, I had acceptance in the fact that I was an alcoholic. I would then have to grow to accept myself and my identity as an alcoholic. But a big tip that I have too, I think, because we are gonna be low on time before we fucking know it, is understanding that to accept things just as they are now. This goes for a healing journey for anyone, that you can't be sober and the reasoning being just this new life that exists up ahead, because your identity, who you are, is now part of you, exists up there, because that's who you think you are. And so there's pieces and bits of you that are just missing along the way. But acceptance is us doing it now, as shit is broken, hard, lonely, confused, fucked up. That's how we accept, just as things are. Because then part of your identity and part of what you are is in this future self that, yes, we're promised if we continue, but that timeline looks different for so many people. I am just now getting to a point where I feel the promises of sobriety are working for me. And in terms of my mental health, in terms of my emotions, a lot, and in a lot of ways. And people are granted that sooner, people are granted that later. And I don't know, it's important to just open your fucking eyes and understand now. You will fall short so long as you were the person judging. And I can promise you that. You will always fall fucking short. And that was definitely a big issue for me in early sobriety, because a lot of my identity was with this new person that I was going to be, this new person I'm changing into. Yes, I was working tirelessly on stuff, but a lot of my identity was there. So I felt like shit. And I would have these big accomplishments in my sobriety. I'd make great leaps and bounds emotionally, whatever it is, financially, like in my relationship, so much. And I should have been more proud of myself, and I could not see them for the great leaps and bounds, because it's just never fucking enough, and nothing's ever enough for me. And that was an issue. I just remember kind of people telling me they're proud of me and stuff, and I'm like, what the fuck ever? Like, that's not cool. It's shallow to say, but we do need accomplishment in our sobriety. We need a driving factor, and accomplishment is something important. And now when I do things, I look back on things, I feel accomplished in my sobriety. And that's a really big tool, that if I ever need to fall back and I'm not doing well, I'm seeking alcohol, I'm seeking bad defects or whatever the situation is, I can fall back and at least know that I have accomplished stuff and that I don't want to fucking ruin that. And if we can't accept now, then we, like the way shit is, then we suffer in the ideal of things taking time and the rush of getting everything done at once and being healthy and being everything. And it's, again, all about the journey. Again, taking shit so fucking slow. And that's what acceptance looks like. And acceptance is not fun. It sucks. But not accepting just prolongs the pain. And I went through sobriety this way, but I definitely measured my growth in terms of physically, where alcohol was like, or maybe emotionally, still stamped inside of me. So I measured how much I still craved it, if that makes sense. And maybe a lot of people do that, but instead of the progress I was making at times and that type of change and stuff, I guess, I was like, okay, now I feel this far away from alcohol. Now I feel this far away from alcohol. And I just keep pushing and pushing because I wanted the freedom. And I think that's a great way to kind of look at it too, because then Otherwise, the rush of trying to make things better, it gets like lost. And that's the type of shit that leads us right back to the drink, is we feel we're falling short and we're not getting what we want. But what we want, don't trick yourself, is freedom away from whatever the fuck you're abusing, away from whatever. And the imprinting sensation that it will always leave on my mind too. I am so far away from alcohol now. I do not crave it like the way that I ever have before. And I crave more so the spiritual life, this new life that I move into. That's what I crave. And we spent so many years in those escapades and being physically and emotionally dependent on something. You don't undo that in the course of a year. I won't fool myself. You don't undo it. And it takes a lifetime of getting rid of that shit. And the rush that we have, or we want that fix, has to subside, and we have to fight for that. That's not easy at all. At all. That is the hardest thing I have ever done. Quieting my mind, quieting the quick fixes, the rushes, the lying, the deceit. That's what's hard. And if you can be willing to accept that as the fight you're having, you can get away from drugs and alcohol, because that's what's one day at a time, is resisting the urge to quiet fucking everything and quit and give up and drink and use drugs. And that is the greatest fight that you can give yourself and the others around you too. But we did talk a little bit last week, kind of, this is the last point I'll make. We talked a little bit last week about the internal dialogue and how important that is. And this acceptance is what allowed me to accept uncertainty too. In all aspects of my life. Life is her own entity. And that is not something I can control ever. And the uncertainty of that was not overwhelming to me anymore. Shit's never going to match up and end up being what I want it to be. And just because it's not, I can't go drink over it. It allowed me to stop seeing failure as just constantly my fault and then viewing myself as a failure because of it. Because life is life. And what you are handed, what you're given sometimes doesn't make any sense. Finally, the acceptance that this is all up to me. My sobriety, my life, everything. It really clicks into place at some point, if you stay and you fight that fight, that this is fully up to you. And no one's coming to help you, again, I say, and no one's coming to save you. And the sacrifice that you have to make, that you sacrifice everything to stay sober. You sacrifice your friends, your past life, all the shit that you thought you were. And that was absolutely terrifying to me. To be open, to be vulnerable, that was utterly gut-wrenching to me, to sacrifice everything I was for the sobriety thing. I was so scared. And it was all up to me the entire time, the way that I saw things, and to change stuff in my control. It took a while for me to grip that in early sobriety, that things are never going to be the same. My friendships, anything in my life is not going to remain the same, but my fight has to be stronger than that. Stronger than the urge in me to go back to my old ways, to go back for things to be the same. The fight has to be stronger, and wanting sobriety has to be stronger than anything else. The base of sobriety is willingness to come to terms, and that reflects all throughout sobriety, well past when you are starting to get sober, when you're getting into like different ranges, different parts of your life and trying to fix relationships or whatever. And it's a tool. Adaptation is a great gift. Adaptation is a fantastic gift. And that is something that we're given through acceptance, is an adaptation to fit into things. They don't fit into us anymore. And that's what acceptance gives us. This is my fight. I fit into it, whether it's relationship, addiction, whatever it fucking looks like. I encourage you to seek and accept where you are in life. I encourage you. Because it's the best thing you can do, whether you're suffering with addiction, whether you're not. Just waking up and accepting shit the way it is. Not the future version, not the past version, where it is currently right now. In the shit, in the good, and in the bad. So, I love you guys, and I hope you have a great week. Bye.